guys. So a few weeks ago I made a video discussing how to find good deals on Craigslist or other private party sites and how to spot which cars could potentially be scams or which cars could be good deals. So if you haven't checked out that video, a link for it will be down below. But in that, I asked if you guys would like to see a follow-up video discussing how to inspect a used car and make sure it's a good car before you buy it. And today I'm going to be going over just a few simple things that you can do to make sure that you're not getting scammed. So I might leave out a couple of things that you do when you go to buy a car, and if I do, feel free to leave those down below in the comments to help used car buyers make sure that they check everything. So all that you'll really need for this is one, a tire pressure checker or monitor, whatever you want to call it, two, an OBD2 scanner, and three, a paper towel. So let's go ahead and get started. One more thing, I also want to give a shout out to my friend Sinister Shelby. He has a really sweet Mustang GT500. He does a lot of cool videos with it, so definitely go check him out on both YouTube and Instagram. Really great guy. We've been friends for pretty much since I started the channel and since when he started making videos. Also, one thing I want to mention before we get started is that for this video I will be using my mom's 2001 Saab 9.3 convertible because this car has only been on the channel once before, and that was way back a long time ago when I did a review on it. So I thought, you know what, why not use a different car for this and, you know, give you guys something else to look at. So one of the most basic and easiest things that you can do when you first see the car is just give it a quick look around. See, you know, do all these body panels line up? Is the panel gap consistent here, which on this one it is? Are there any big dents, scratches, or dings? Like for example, this one down here has a dent right here. It might be hard to see because the lighting in here isn't the best, and I apologize for that. But this was here when my mom actually bought this car, so that was not her own fault. Another thing that you'll want to look for is the condition of the paint. Now right here you can see that the paint is starting to fade and the clear coat's getting a little bit messed up on the trunk lid here. And that's a really common problem on these 9.3 convertibles apparently. I guess just kind of how it's positioned, the sun really gets to it and just kind of starts to eat away at the paint, which is kind of unfortunate. So a couple more things while you're on the outside of the car. Of course, check the wheels and tires. You can see that these wheels have a little bit of curb rash on them, so you can use that to your favor when you're bargaining. And you'll want to check the tire pressure. Of course, check the tread on the tire as well, because if it needs new tires, that's probably going to be $400 or $500, possibly even more. So that's again something else that you can use as a bargaining tool. And then we're going to go ahead and bring out the tire pressure monitor. Just quickly check the pressure of all four tires. Make sure that they're not leaking or they're low on pressure or anything bad. So these are really simple to use. This one you literally just unscrew the little cap here and then just push this on. Gave me a reading of 31.5 psi, which maybe just a little bit low, but that's nothing that should really be concerning. So this tire is good, and then of course you'll check the other three. I'm not going to do that just for the sake of saving time and because it's going to be repetitive. One more thing I want to mention is to make sure to look at the car during daylight and not at night, because no lighting can hide a lot of exterior problems with the car, such as that dent you honestly probably wouldn't see at night. It'd be really hard to see, especially with this dark blue color. So I just always advise going during the day when you'll have good lighting and you can clearly see everything on the car. So next thing we're going to do is check under the hood. Just make sure everything looks right. We're going to check all the fluids. So of course when you open up the engine bay, you want to make sure that there's no fluids or oil anywhere. You want to check below the car, make sure it's not leaking oil because that could potentially be a serious issue. You just want to make sure, how's the engine bay look as a whole? Is it dirty? I mean, this one just has a lot of dirt on it obviously, so that's just not cleaning it. But you know, is there any like spilled fluid anywhere? Is there any corrosion or rust for some reason? Just make sure that it looks good. And speaking of rust, out here in Arizona we don't have to worry about it, but for those of you that are on the East Coast or in a wetter climate, you definitely want to check for rust on the car as well. So now we're just going to check all the fluids, make sure that the oil looks good, it's not milky or anything because that could be the sign of a bad head gasket. So we're just going to make sure that everything is in good working order here. So of course when you go to check the oil, you always want to wipe it off the first time because it's probably not going to give you an accurate reading. Then just go ahead, put it back in the whole way, pull it back out, then you'll get a good reading. Of course you'll also want to check the coolant right here, make sure that's good. I'm not going to open it because the engine is still a bit hot and you don't want to open anything that's pressurized when it's hot because that'll go everywhere, and I really don't want to burn myself on camera. You can also check the brake fluid, the transmission fluid, but those aren't necessarily stuff that you need to do, but it's something that you probably should still do. While we still have the hood up, I want to turn the car on, hear the engine run, make sure there's no knocking or ticking or any weird noises coming from the engine. So it might be a little bit hard to hear me over this, but everything is working perfectly fine. You can hear the fans running, cooling down the engine, which is perfectly good. I'm just going to turn the engine off because I think you guys see the point and it's destroying the audio of this video. Another thing you can do while you're under the hood is check the battery life, see how good it is, see if it'll need a new one soon, but again, that's not something that you necessarily have to do. So now I think we're ready to close the hood. And a couple more things around the outside. If you just put the key in the on position, you'll be able to check if all the lights work. So if we just do a quick walk around here, we can see that both the tail lights are in good working order, as well as both of the headlights. You can also check the fog lights, the high beams, the turn indicators, the third brake light, you know, make sure that all of those work. So now we're ready to come to the inside of the car. And before we start looking to make sure everything else works, probably the most important thing that you can do when checking for a used car is just hooking up an OBD2 scanner to the car. And I believe that any car, it's either 1995 or 1996. I think it's 1996 and newer is required to have an OBD2 port. So if it's older than that, you might be out of luck. So the OBD2 port will always be somewhere down in here under the driver's footwell. You just got to feel around for it, and then of course just plug in the OBD2 and it'll fire up. So I want to give a thank you to TopDon for actually sending me this OBD2 scanner. So it's a very high quality one. It can do everything that you would ever dream of it doing and more. For the purpose of this video though, we're just going to be hooking it up to check for a check engine light and make sure that there's no error codes coming from the car. So for this, we'll just go down to OBD2 diagnose here, and that'll just give us a basic rundown of what's up with the car. Is there anything wrong with it? Is everything working well? And it'll give us basically all the vital information that we'll need to know. And of course, this OBD2 scanner can also give you live data from the car, such as your coolant temperature, engine RPM, all that good stuff in case you're curious. But that's just in a different setting, and we're not going to go over that. So right here, hopefully the camera can pick it up, it says DTCs in this ECU, 0. So that's good news. And then of course, if it does still say that, that means that the owner could have cleared the code right before you got there just to say, you know, hey look, there's nothing wrong with it, when in reality there could be something major wrong with it. So you can also check if they pulled the fuse for any lights in here, because on the dash, when you have the car in the on position, all the lights should come on. And if the check engine light bulb is not coming on, that means that they could have pulled the fuse for that, and you might want to check that or at least ask them about that. So now that we're inside the car, and I apologize again for the poor lighting, this car only has 2 little lights right here and then 2 in the back. But now that you're inside the car, you can go ahead and check, make sure everything works, you know, make sure the horn works. Horn works, that's good. Make sure that all the buttons, everything that's supposed to light up is lighting up. You know, just go ahead, test the radio. Radio's clearly working. Crank the AC. Make sure it's blowing cold. Make sure the turn signals work again. You know, make sure all the buttons work that should work. Just go over it all, make sure it works. See if there's any wear on any of the buttons, if any of them are jammed for some reason. You know, just common sense stuff. Just be very detail oriented about it. So you'll also want to check for the wear on the seats. When we bought this car, both of the seats were completely shot. We got new covers for both of them, so they're much better now. But if the seats are worn, that is a cost that you can take into consideration and bring up as a bargaining tool to use to your advantage. So then of course, once you've done all that, you can go ahead and take it on a test drive. And when you take it on a test drive, you don't just want to take it around the block. You want to actually take it out and drive it for at least 15 minutes would be the goal. You want to make sure that you can get it up to higher speed. See if you can get on a highway. You want to make sure to check the brakes, you know, slam on the brakes a couple times. Check the steering, make sure it's loose, make sure it's not bouncing up and down the road. That could be bad suspension. If it's an automatic, you want to make sure that shifts smoothly into all gears like reverse and drive. And then once you are in drive and you're driving, the shifts from first to second, second to third, third to fourth and whatnot are smooth, and it doesn't lurch or jump into gear for some reason. And if it starts to shudder for some reason, or if it dies randomly, that is a red flag. And if you aren't confident enough that you know what the issue is, you can always take it to a mechanic to have it inspected. And if you aren't knowledgeable on cars to begin with, I would always recommend taking it to a mechanic. And one more thing, if it's an automatic, you want to make sure to floor it in probably first gear, you want to make sure to floor it in second gear. So that way the car's going to be downshifting and changing gears under high pressure and a lot of stress to make sure that transmission is not going to slip or anything bad will happen. Now, if it's a manual car, you want to make sure that the clutch is engaging well, it's not slipping, it's going into gear well, all the gears are working properly. Make sure to upshift through all the gears, make sure to downshift through all the gears. You know, just common sense stuff. So once you get back from the test drive, if you are being super detail oriented, you can always check all the fluids again, make sure the car is running at the right temperature, it's not overheating, anything like that. It's not smoking for some reason, the exhaust looks fine. Then after that, it pretty much just comes down to negotiation. And if you guys would like to see a video on how to negotiate when buying a car, let me know. I'll be more than happy to make one. I'm not sure exactly how I would do it, but I can definitely give you guys some tips and pointers on how to get a good deal and how to negotiate down a price. So with that being said, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.